My name is Alara Quinn, 32 years old. I'd spent 2 days coaxing Rosemary into a roast and twine around napkins, pretending you can tie a family together with good knots. Philadelphia was crisp outside, the kind of cold that makes windows honest. Inside, my table glowed under a string of lights I'd clipped along the molding. When everyone finally sat, I could almost believe this would work. The plates warm, the dessert ridiculous, my mother already eyeing the centerpiece so she could rearrange it. My dad leaned back, the chair complaining under old habits. "Still living office, huh?" he said, just loud enough to shred the room. He reached for the salt like a judge stamping a file. The laugh from my mother cut quick, a bright, brittle break in glass. Nicole and Brandon traded the kind of smirk that belongs to co-conspirators, not guests. Even Chloe, 6 and soft-looking at the end with her feet swinging, froze her fork midair, as if the air had rules she'd been breaking. My roast stayed untouched. The dessert hummed under its cloche like a secret no one wanted. I didn't argue. I've learned that with them, volume is a coupon, redeemable for more. I set my napkin down. The scrape of my chair skated along the floor, louder than any speech. "Enjoy," I said, to no one, to everyone. I grabbed my coat. My mother made a tutting sound. My dad muttered, "dramatic," and Nicole said, "Don't be sensitive, Elle," all innocence and mascara. Outside, the stairwell smelled like dust and a childhood you can't mop out. On the sidewalk, Center City glittered like it didn't know me. I stood under a street lamp and let the cold walk up my sleeves until my hands learned their own edges again. Here is the ledger. They never read. I run a freelance design studio. Clients from tech to bakeries. Invoices paid on time because I care about fonts and people. 3 years ago, I bought a 2-bedroom in a good building. Elevator that doesn't sigh. A balcony with stubborn geraniums. Market rent is around $2,800. I don't list it. I rent it to my family, my parents, Nicole, her husband Brandon, and Chloe, for $600 a month. I told myself it kept them safe, that generosity is just love with better math. It was also how I stayed invited. Even so, I've had the itch that says you're being fitted for a smaller life. My father calls with little extras for repairs, money that never reaches a wrench. My mother praises Nicole the way some people pray, constantly, with specifics. Nicole posts photos of the condo like it grew from her spine, geotagging my view with the sunset I bought. Brandon's contribution is a soundtrack of mutters about real landlords. I tried to stitch us once. I designed prints tailored to each of them. My mother's favorite lily in teal, my father's beloved baseball park, rendered in clean lines, Nicole's in an expensive blush she likes to call nude. I framed them, wrapped them, delivered them like offerings. Nicole said she'd hang hers in Chloe's room. Weeks later, I found it still wrapped, leaning in a closet behind a tower of shoes she can't afford. My mother thanked me, like you thank a hostess gift you plan to leave behind. My dad didn't open his. Tyler, my partner for 2 years, a marketing consultant with a heart that sits right where it should, shook his head when I told him. "You're their bank, not their daughter," he said. Not cruel, just clear. They don't see a person, they see a policy. It stung how quickly my body agreed. I replayed the dinner in my head that night. The roast cooling, my dad smirking, my mother's laugh, the way Nicole's eyes checked Brandon's as if to confirm I'd taken my place. I stood in my kitchen and tried to taste what I'd cooked. It was ash and rosemary. My phone buzzed on the counter, a DM from Tara, a woman who works with Nicole at the boutique and has never used exclamation points without cause. "Hey, Alara, I shouldn't get involved, but you deserve to see this." A screenshot loaded, the blue chat bubbles lined up like bullets. "Nicole, we've got this in the bag. $600 for a 2.8K unit. Elle's too naive to charge more. Family discount forever." Another message, presumably Danielle from Shoes. "Queen behavior. She owes you anyway after all your parents did for her." My thumb went cold. The words stared back, sleek and smug, and my heart did the thing it does when you understand the joke and realize you're the punchline. Tara added, "Sorry." She left her phone on the counter during closing. "I didn't mean to snoop. This felt wrong." I took a breath that shook on the way out. "Thank you," I wrote back. "Please don't tell her you sent this." I saved the screenshot to a folder I named Proof, like a person who has finally learned to label the fire extinguisher. Then I opened notes and typed numbers until they made a shape. Taxes I pay, utilities I cover, the furnishings I provided. The total looked like a betrayal without adjectives. Tyler called. "Hey," he said, voice low. "You okay?" "They think I'm a wallet with Wi-Fi," I said. I read him the messages. He whistled, soft and unhappy. "What do you want to do?" "Stop underwriting my own erasure," I said, surprising myself with the crispness of it. "Good," he said. "Start with facts. No speeches. Facts are fireproof." I opened my laptop again and shot a message to someone who knows how cities keep secrets. Reena Patel, a paralegal friend who babysat my closing paperwork when I bought the condo. Quick question. Can you confirm current Center City comps and send me the relevant statute on rent adjustments for non-formal family tenancies? Also, any best practices for serving notice that isn't hostile? Reena's dots appeared like a heartbeat. On it. Market's still 2.7 to 2.9K for your floor plan. I'll email you language and we'll keep it surgical. Also, document everything. You'll thank me later. I will, I thought, and stared at Nicole's laugh emoji until it drained of shape. Before bed, I scrolled Nicole's feed one more time. There she was on my balcony at golden hour, captioned "Gratitude with a prayer," hands emoji, and a quote about abundance. In the reflection of the sliding door, you could see my peace lily on the sill like a witness. I set my alarm for early. In the morning, I would ask them to meet me at the condo. No raised voices, just the number the market demands, and the date by which they'd need to respect it or leave. I turned off the kitchen light, and in the reflection of the window, I saw myself. Tired, yes, but standing. The night made a room for resolve, and I stepped into it. The next evening, I sat at my desk, staring at the glowing spreadsheet. The cells stared back like tiny windows into every mistake I'd made. 5 years of losses, each one politely labeled family rent adjustment. I scrolled down to the total, $79,200. That's how much I'd quietly eaten so they could live like royalty in my condo while calling me naive. The screenshot Tara had sent sat open on my phone beside me. Nicole's words had stopped stinging. Now they just burned slow and steady, like coals under thought. I sent a message to my parents' group chat, the one where Mom mostly sent good morning gifts and Dad shared blurry photos of Chloe at school events. Me, we need to talk. Everyone, condo, tomorrow 6 p.m. The typing dots appeared, then disappeared. Finally, Mom replied, "Mom, everything okay?" Me, "We'll discuss in person." No one else responded. At 5:59 the next day, I was already sitting in the condo's living room. I'd lit no lamps, only the natural blue hour coming through the windows. It felt surgical, neutral, clinical, the way I wanted this to be. They arrived exactly how I expected. Nicole first, all perfume and dramatics. Brandon behind her, with his perpetual scowl, my parents last, looking like they'd come to a funeral they hadn't planned to attend. Nicole's voice was honey and vinegar. "So, what's this about, Elle? Some emergency?" Dad threw his jacket over the couch like it was still his. "If it's about the flickering light in the hallway, I already fixed it." "It's not about the light," I said, standing. "It's about the rent." That word landed heavy. Nicole's smile slipped. "I've been charging you $600 a month," I continued, "for a property that's worth almost $3,000 on the market. I covered taxes, insurance, maintenance, and repairs. That ends next month. The new rate is $2,800. If you can't pay it, you'll have to move out in 30 days. Silence. Brandon barked a laugh. "You're serious? We're family, Alara." "Exactly," I said. "Family doesn't exploit each other." Dad's jaw tightened. "Exploit? You're accusing your own father." "I'm stating facts," I said. "The lease I drew up says the rate can be revised at any time with 30 days' notice. I've given you that notice." Nicole crossed her arms. "We can't afford that, and you know it." "I do," I said. "That's why you have options. Pay or move." Mom spoke for the first time, her voice trembling, but still sharp. "Alara, think about Chloe. You'd put your niece out on the street?" "No," I said softly. "Her parents did that when they bragged about cheating me." Nicole's eyes flared. "Excuse me?" I turned my phone around, the screenshot bright on the screen. Tara sent me this. She froze, the color drained from her face. "That's taken out of context." Brandon cut in, his voice rising. "You had no right to dig through her messages." "I didn't," I said. "Someone else did. Because they saw how wrong it was. Dad pushed up from the couch. You think you're better than us now, just because you've got your fancy clients and your precious apartment? No, I said. I just finally know what I'm worth. Nicole's lip trembled. Anger, not guilt. You've changed, Elle. You used to care about family. I still do, I said. That's why I'm giving you a choice. Brandon muttered under his breath. You'll regret this. I met his glare. Maybe, but at least it'll be my decision. Mom's eyes filled, but I could tell it wasn't sorrow. It was fury dressed as sadness. You're breaking this family apart. No, I said. I'm setting boundaries you should have respected years ago. After they left, the silence felt heavier than any argument. My phone buzzed. One new message from an unknown number. Unknown, push this and your place won't stay perfect. No name, no emojis, just the kind of promise that carries a fist. My pulse steadied before my breath did. I forwarded the message to myself, took a screenshot, and stored it in my folder labeled Evidence, the one Rena had told me to keep. Then I opened another file and began writing notes. Dates, times, quotes, everything I remembered from that meeting. The word threat went at the top in bold. I didn't text anyone back that night. Not Mom, not Dad, not Nicole. Instead, I called Tyler. They're panicking, he said, after I told him everything. That's what this is. It's not panic, I said quietly. It's entitlement. They've lived off me so long they think it's a birthright. Then you're doing the right thing. Right, I murmured, but right doesn't always feel good. The next morning, I woke to 12 unread texts. Nicole, I can't believe you'd embarrass us like that. Dad, after all we did for you, this is your thanks? Mom, please, think of Chloe. Brandon, don't test me, Elle. The last one I archived under threats. The rest I didn't dignify with a response. When I got to my office, Rena had already sent me the official rent adjustment notice template, pre-filled with their names. All I had to do was sign and date it. Before I hit print, I hesitated, just long enough to wonder if I was becoming the villain they'd already painted me as. Then I remembered my father's voice. Still living off us, huh? Click, print, done. That evening, I slipped the envelopes under their condo door, one for each adult, notarized copies for the record. As I walked back down the hall, my phone buzzed again. A message from Tyler. Dinner on me tonight. You need real food and a reminder that you're not crazy. I smiled for the first time in days. Behind me, through the walls, I could already hear raised voices. Brandon's angry bark, Nicole's high-pitched defense, my mother trying to mediate. Let them shout, let them stew. For once, the chaos was on their side of the door. The storm didn't take long to arrive. By the next morning, my phone vibrated itself across the desk with notifications. Nicole had posted a photo of my condo's living room, my living room, captioned, "When your own sister turns into a greedy landlord, #family first, #betrayal." The comments rolled in like small stones thrown by strangers. How could she? Money changes people. You deserve better, Nick. By noon, the post had hundreds of likes. My relatives from 3 different states had joined the chorus. I didn't comment. I just scrolled slowly, memorizing each line of judgment like evidence carved in glass. Then I took screenshots of everything, the post, the comments, the timestamp, and added them to my folder. Rena texted back within the hour. You did the right thing. Don't engage. Save everything. Tyler called right after. You okay? I'm fine, I said, though my hand had gone numb from gripping my pen. I just never realized how loud people can be when they don't know the truth. Then let them talk, he said. You've got proof. That's power. He was right, but power doesn't quiet the ache. That afternoon, I got a message from Dad. There's a problem with the lights. Need you to come fix it. For a second, I thought maybe this was his peace offering, an olive branch disguised as a maintenance request. Foolish hope. Still, I grabbed my keys and drove over. The air in the condo felt different, stale and too warm. No one was home, but the faint smell of cheap cologne and fried food lingered. The problem was a flickering hallway bulb. I replaced it in 2 minutes. Then I walked into the living room and stopped. Across the arm of my cream-colored sofa, a thick black line of permanent marker cut through the fabric like a scar, jagged, deliberate, impossible to miss. My chest tightened. I reached out, my fingertips brushing the rough edge of the ink. This wasn't an accident. Someone wanted me to see it. For a moment, I pictured Brandon's grin, the way he always flicked pens between his fingers like weapons. But I didn't say the name aloud. I pulled out my phone and took photos, close-ups, wide shots, the timestamp visible. Then another message to Rena. Intentional property damage. attaching photos. Her reply came in minutes. That's vandalism. Document cost of cleaning. Keep receipts. This strengthens your case if you proceed with eviction. Eviction. The words still felt brutal, like pushing your own blood out into the cold. But maybe they'd chosen the cold themselves. I sat on the edge of the ruined sofa, the weight of years pressing down. My mind flickered through birthdays spent covering their bills, Christmases where my gifts were checks for mortgage payments, the nights I'd skipped rent from my own tenants so they could keep their lights on. All that goodwill reduced to one ugly black stroke. A child's drawing on the side table caught my eye. Chloe's, from the looks of it. Crayon rainbows, a stick figure, family holding hands. Underneath, in crooked letters, me and everyone in the big house. Something in me softened for a heartbeat. Chloe didn't draw villains. She drew hope. Maybe one day she'd see the difference. I folded the paper carefully and slipped it into my purse. By evening, Tyler was at my door with takeout and concern in his eyes. "Tell me what happened," he said. I showed him the photos. He let out a low whistle. "That's low. But now you've got more proof. They're digging their own grave." I nodded, pushing lo mein around my plate. I keep waiting for them to realize what they're doing. To just stop. He shook his head. People who think they're entitled to you don't stop until you make them. His words stayed in my head all night. The next day, I called a cleaning service. They quoted $200 to try to lift the stain with no guarantees. I paid anyway. When the worker arrived, she took one look at the mark and sighed. "Permanent," she said. "They really wanted to make a point, huh?" "Yeah," I whispered. "They did." As she left, she gave me a look. Half pity, half respect. "Good luck, honey. Family's the hardest to evict." That afternoon, I met Rena at her office. She spread my evidence across her desk. The screenshots, the text threats, the vandalism photos. She tapped a pen against the table. "This is enough," she said. "We can issue a formal eviction notice immediately if they fail to pay the new rent by the end of the week." I hesitated. "I don't want to ruin them." She leaned forward. "They already decided you were the villain, Alara. You might as well play the part that gets you your life back." Her calmness grounded me. I signed the papers. My hands didn't shake this time. When I walked out of her office, the city air hit me sharp and clean. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like clarity. I wasn't their villain, I was their mirror, and they just didn't like what they saw. That night, as I was brushing my teeth, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "This isn't over. No name. Just that." I stared at the words, then took another screenshot. My reflection in the dark window caught my eye. Tired but unflinching. "Maybe it is," I whispered to myself. "You just don't know it yet." The 30 days ticked by like a fuse, each one louder than the last. Every morning I'd wake to a new text from Nicole or Mom, sometimes pleading, sometimes guilt-laced, sometimes furious. Dad's messages were always short. "You'll regret this." Brandon didn't bother with words, just a single middle finger emoji sent at 3 a.m., like a calling card. Rena said to keep documenting everything, so I did. My phone was full of proof. Texts, screenshots, bank statements, photos of the vandalized sofa. Proof of everything except the ache. Day 25. Mom left a voicemail that started as a sob and ended as a sermon. "You're tearing the family apart, Alara. We raised you better. Think of your niece. Think of your mother's heart." I deleted it before she finished the sentence. Tyler started answering my calls with a cautious, "How bad is it today?" He kept me grounded, reminding me to breathe between each wave of noise. But I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until I stopped by the condo one morning to collect mail and found the front door wide open. The living room looked like a storm had passed through. Drawers half open, dishes stacked haphazardly, a suitcase overturned in the hallway. My chest tightened. "Hello?" I called. Mom's voice floated from the kitchen. "Oh, you're here." She was making coffee like it was any normal morning. "Why is the door open?" I asked, keeping my tone calm. "Just airing the place out," she said, stirring cream into her mug. "You always keep it so stuffy." My dad sat on the couch, watching the muted TV. "We're not leaving," he said flatly. I took a breath. "The notice was clear, Dad." "We're your parents," he snapped. "You think a piece of paper means anything?" Mom set her mug down hard. "You'd really call the police on your own family?" The silence that followed was the kind that changes everything. "Yes," I said, "I would." I walked out before they could answer. My legs were shaking, but not from doubt. It was something purer, adrenaline with purpose. When I got home, I called Rena. "They're refusing to leave," I said. She didn't sound surprised. "I'll draft the final eviction notice, serve it formally. And Alara?" Yeah? Don't go back alone next time. Day 30. The notice deadline. At 8 a.m., I parked outside the condo. Tyler had offered to come, but I told him no. This was mine to finish. The morning sky was a pale gray, the kind that makes every sound sharper. I knocked once. No answer. I unlocked the door. They were eating breakfast at my table. Pancakes, coffee, the smell of maple syrup filling the room like mockery. You have 30 minutes, I said. Nicole froze mid-bite. What? You heard me. You've ignored every notice. You have 30 minutes to pack. Dad stood up slowly, his voice low and dangerous. You're serious. I met his stare. Completely. Mom slammed her fork down. You're heartless. Maybe, I said, but I'm free. Nicole's voice rose to a shrill edge. We're not leaving. Then the police will help you pack, I said, pulling out my phone. I dialed 911 before they could stop me. The dispatcher's voice was calm, professional. What's your emergency? My tenants are refusing to vacate after legal notice, I said, steady despite my pulse. 20 minutes later, 2 officers arrived. A man named Carter and a woman named Ruiz. Carter asked to see my documents. I handed over the signed lease and eviction papers. Ruiz looked around the apartment, then turned to my parents. You've been given lawful notice. You need to leave. Mom burst into tears, grabbing her purse like a prop. She's our daughter. She can't do this. Ruiz's voice softened, but not much. Ma'am, she can. Dad's face went red. You ungrateful... Sir, Carter cut in, you can either gather your belongings or we can escort you out. Nicole muttered under her breath. She's going to regret this. Add that to the file, Carter said without looking up. Brandon slammed his chair back and started packing loudly, tossing clothes into a duffel like he was punishing the air. Mom cried harder, wailing for sympathy that wouldn't come. Chloe clung to a teddy bear, eyes wide. She didn't understand any of it. That, more than anything, twisted the knife. Can she stay with me for now? I whispered to Mom, quietly, trying to find a sliver of mercy. Mom glared through her tears. You don't get to play savior. And that was that. By the time they finished packing, the condo felt hollow. The officers escorted them to their car. Carter gave me a nod. You handled that better than most, he said. When the door closed behind them, the silence hit like a thunderclap. I stood in the middle of the room, staring at the space where my sofa used to sit before they ruined it. My throat felt tight, but not from sadness, from release. For years, I'd been their insurance policy, their backup plan. Now, for the first time, the only person I was responsible for was myself. I sank onto the floor, knees pulled to my chest, and let the quiet wrap around me. Somewhere outside, their car started. Then it was gone. The echo of the door shutting was the sound of boundaries locking into place. I wasn't their daughter to fix things anymore. I was Alara Quinn, and my life was finally mine. A week after the eviction, I found myself back in the condo, standing where their laughter used to echo. The space was stripped bare. The air had that hollow smell of cleaning products and endings. I'd spent 3 days hauling out their leftovers, a cracked mug, a broken photo frame, the shredded remains of my sofa. The cleaning crew had just left, and for the first time in years, the place was spotless. It didn't feel like theirs anymore. It didn't even feel like mine. It felt waiting. I leaned against the doorframe, watching sunlight catch the empty floor. My phone buzzed. A message from my realtor, Sandra. Got multiple offers already. 2 doctors love the layout and are ready to pay full market. Want to meet them tomorrow? I typed back, yes, noon's fine. 2 doctors. Real tenants. People who'd respect the space. The thought alone made my shoulders drop an inch. That night, I sat at my desk scrolling through a local community forum and froze. Thread title: Heartless Sister Evicts Her Family. Mom's words were there in black and white. She'd written a long post claiming I'd thrown them out into the cold for profit, that I'd turned my back on family values. Dad had chimed in 2 comments below. We sacrificed everything for her education. This is how she repays us. And then Nicole. Of course, Nicole. She's not who you think she is. Followed by a photo of Chloe's sad face in the back seat of their car. Hundreds of comments again. Strangers debating my morality as if it were a sport. I stared until the words blurred, then quietly started taking screenshots. Each page, each accusation, stored neatly in my folder. When the phone rang, I didn't even check the ID. Mom, I said flatly, take the post down. Her tone was sharp, brittle. Maybe if you'd shown some compassion, I wouldn't have to explain why my own daughter left us homeless. You're not homeless, I said. You're staying with Aunt Marlene. A pause. Then, that's not the point. It's exactly the point, I said, my voice low. You're lying to save face. You can't rewrite what happened because you don't like how it looks." She exhaled hard through the receiver, the sound almost like a hiss. "You'll regret humiliating us." I hung up before I could say something I couldn't take back. Rena came over that evening with Thai food and legal calm. She spread her laptop across my kitchen table and scrolled through the screenshots. "This qualifies as defamation," she said. "We can send a cease and desist. It's faster and quieter than a lawsuit." I hesitated. Do I really want to sue my parents? Rena gave me a look that was half compassion, half steel. "You're not suing them. You're protecting yourself. There's a difference." She typed up the letter as I watched. Each sentence was measured, factual, devoid of venom, just like she'd taught me to be. By the time she hit send, the ache in my chest had dulled. The next afternoon, my phone rang again. "Mom." I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Then another. Finally, I listened. "Why are you doing this, Alara? Why are you trying to ruin your family's name? We already took the post down. Wasn't that enough?" It was a small victory, hearing that admission. The thread was gone by the next morning. No apology, of course, just silence. But silence, I was learning, could be a kind of peace. The doctors, Maya and Julian, toured the condo that weekend. They walked through the rooms like people seeing potential, not property. Julian ran his hand along the new mirror in the hallway. "This is a beautiful space," he said. "Feels like it was taken care of with love." The irony almost made me laugh. They signed the lease that same afternoon, $2,800 a month, direct deposit, no guilt attached. When they left, I stood in the quiet again and realized something unexpected. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. That evening, a small envelope slipped under my apartment door, my name written in shaky crayon. I opened it and froze. It was from Chloe. Inside was a drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. "Me, Aunt Alara, and Teddy," the caption said. Below it, a short message. "I miss you. Mommy says you're mad, but I don't think you are. Love, Chloe." The paper shook in my hands. For a moment, all the noise of the past month, the posts, the insults, the police, the shouting, vanished. All I saw was her handwriting, her attempt to understand the wreckage adults had built around her. I sat down at the table and stared at the drawing until the ink blurred. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in a small wooden box, the same one that once held my sister's birthday cards, now my quiet archive of what still mattered. That night, Tyler came over with a bottle of wine. "How's the war zone?" he asked. "Quiet," I said. He smiled. "That's progress." I told him about the new tenants, about Chloe's letter. He listened without interrupting, the way he always did. "You're allowed to feel both things," he said gently. "Proud of yourself and sad for her." "I know," I said. "I just wish she didn't have to learn what loyalty costs this early." He nodded. "Then one day, you'll show her what boundaries look like instead." Maybe that was the promise I could keep. To stay steady enough that when Chloe was old enough to ask, I'd still be the answer she trusted. When I went to bed that night, I placed her drawing on my nightstand. A reminder. Love doesn't mean surrender. And silence, finally, felt earned. 6 months later, Philadelphia had melted into spring. The kind that smelled like wet brick and lilacs. The kind that made even old wounds feel breathable. The condo was alive again. Not with shouting or slammed doors, but with the faint hum of music and the scent of fresh paint. Maya and Julian, my new tenants, had turned the space into something unrecognizable. Where my family's clutter once piled high, there were now succulents in terracotta pots. They'd replaced the cheap curtains with linen drapes that let light spill in like forgiveness. Every time I stopped by to fix a small thing, a dripping faucet, a loose handle, they thanked me twice. They even left a handwritten note once. "Thank you for being the kind of landlord who cares." It sat on my kitchen counter for weeks, like proof that kindness didn't always have to hurt. Life slowly began to stretch again. My freelance design work expanded. One client led to 3, then to a steady retainer with a local art gallery. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was building something. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation for it. Tyler and I spent most evenings together now, planning the wedding we'd postponed during the chaos. We wanted it small, intentional. A few friends, no relatives, no speeches that twisted love into obligation. When he proposed again, properly this time, it was at the park near Boathouse Row, under a sky that looked scrubbed clean. He knelt in the grass, not the grand kind of kneeling, just enough to meet my eyes. "You've carried so much," he said. Let me carry some now. I didn't cry. I just nodded because some promises don't need tears to be true. The wedding was 3 months later, in late September. We rented a small venue in Fairmount Park, strings of lights, candles in jars, a jazz trio playing softly as the sun went down. My best friend Sarah was maid of honor. She joked through her toast about my family eviction arc, and everyone laughed, even me. There was no tension, no pretending, just warmth. When Tyler read his vows, his voice caught halfway through. "You're my calm in every storm, Alara. You taught me that choosing peace sometimes means walking alone first." I looked at him and thought, no, it means finally walking home. The applause that followed wasn't polite. It was full, real. For once, the noise in my life was joy, not judgment. A few weeks after the wedding, I checked the mail and found an envelope with no return address. The handwriting was familiar, uneven, careful. Chloe's. Inside was a photo of her holding a stuffed bear in front of a small school stage, a gold star sticker on her shirt. "Dear Aunt Alara," the note read, "I got to be the narrator in the play. Mommy didn't want to send this, but I did anyway. I miss you. Love, Chloe." The corners of the letter were smudged with crayon. I sat down right there on the stairs, the letter trembling in my hands. For a long time, I'd told myself boundaries meant closing doors completely. But now, holding her little letter, I realized something softer, that boundaries weren't walls. They were doors with locks I controlled. I couldn't open it for everyone, but maybe, one day, I could leave a light on for her. I tucked the photo into a small wooden frame and set it on my shelf beside the peace lily. Its white bloom had opened again, taller this time, stronger. One night, a month later, I stopped by the condo to drop off a new lease addendum for Maya and Julian. As I walked through, I paused in the hallway by the mirror, the one I'd replaced after the vandalism. It gleamed now, clear and perfect. My reflection stared back, older maybe, but lighter. In that reflection, I saw every version of myself that had stood there before. The woman who begged for approval, the one who stayed quiet at family dinners, the one who finally said enough. They were all still me, but only one version was standing there, steady and unafraid. I whispered to the empty hallway, "You made it." The mirror didn't answer, but the peace lily on the sill caught a beam of moonlight and shimmered, as if to say, "Yes, you did." Now, some mornings, I make coffee and sit on my balcony, sketching designs as the city wakes up. The skyline hums softly. No judgment, no family drama, just possibility. Sometimes, I reread Chloe's letters. Sometimes, I don't. But I always glance at that framed note, her little crayon hearts reminding me that even the messiest love can leave something pure behind. People ask if I've forgiven them. I say forgiveness isn't a single act. It's the quiet choice to stop carrying their noise. I don't know if I'll ever open that door again. Maybe someday, if Chloe knocks. But not for anyone else. Because I finally understand closure isn't about slamming a door. It's about knowing which ones deserve to stay closed. And when I lock mine each night, I do it gently.